If you've been going around the good old internet looking for the right podcast to fulfill your New York Yankees needs, well, I'll be the first to deliver the good news to you. You have found it. Here on Yapping Yankees with me, your host, Mike Scudero, you and I will be discussing the latest news, takes, and talk throughout the entire Yankee universe. Oh, and there may be some ranting on my behalf. Yeah. Anyway, what do you say we get to it? Let's get to yapping! Well, hello there, my fellow Yankee fans, and welcome to episode 264 of the Yapping Yankees podcast. As always, I am your host, Mike Scudero, your friendly neighborhood Yankee yapper with the best yap in all the land, here on September 21st, 2025, with yet another extra large order of the Yappuccino for you. Thank you. Week 4 in a row coming to you live from my echo chamber known as the spare bedroom in my apartment. Oh my gosh, 4 weeks in a row. When was the last time that happened? I'm not even sure it's happened this season, as I've said the last few episodes, but we're finishing September off strong, like I've said, my friends. That is the goal, that's what we're doing, and that's what is happening. I will be back again next Sunday with you to finish out the regular season. It's crazy to think that next week, 1 week from now, it's the last episode of the 2025 regular season for Major League Baseball. That is absolutely insane. I hope you all had a good last week. Mine was certainly eventful. I hope yours was too, in a good way. In a good way. And to say that the last week was eventful for the Yankees would be an understatement. In a good way, thankfully. Mostly a good way. Nothing's always completely perfect, especially when it comes to baseball. You're playing every day. Bad things are going to be mixed with good, plenty. But for the Yankees this past week, it was mostly very good, especially today. I mean, I'm just coming off that freaking grand slam before. We're listening to it right now again because I got to get another dose of that injected right into my veins. Audio and courtesy of the S Network. I need to hear this again. Let's listen back to that Ben Rice extra innings absolute tank job of a grand slam.
1-2, driven deep to right center field, way back. See ya! A grand slam for Ben Rice. What a Sunday for Rice, and the Yankees take a 5-1 lead.
Have yourself a day, Benny boy. Holy mother of God.
Holy crap.
That is right. 4 for 5 today. And guys, at the end of the game, again, I'm coming off of a high on this because the grand slam happened not long ago from the time I'm recording. I was just standing right in the middle of my living room and just, I don't know what to expect because the Yankees this year, as we know, not so much towards the end of the season here, but throughout the entire duration of the 2025 season, how brutal of an extra innings team were the Yankees, especially on the road. I mean, oh my God, they were just a nightmare, absolute nightmare. And then the last few times out there, they've seen a lot more of a mix of success when it comes to that, but I was just sort of expecting another blown opportunity because especially that was what we were seeing for most of this afternoon. So many blown scoring chances, just dead offense inning after inning after inning after inning after inning. And then they finally get this golden opportunity in the top of the 10th inning. Oh my God, Ben Rice comes up. He's already got 3 hits on the day leading up to this. He was their only run on the afternoon back in the 6th inning. Back when Bradish was still pitching, and he was just shutting the Yankees the hell down. And the shame of it was that other than a solo shot, Schlittler was doing the same thing to the Orioles. Just a pitcher's duel, and then it was just 1-1, headed all the way to extras, and then Ben Rice does that. That was, I mean, I usually don't like to use this word unless it is truly, truly so, because it could be so overused and just absolutely abused, misused. Good Lord, Mike, how many words are you going to come up with word used in it? But that moment was, in every sense of the word, epic. And it is a true testament, honestly, to the story of Ben Rice this year, because the season that this kid has had, the growth that we have witnessed is very special. In the follow-up season to when he first came up and everybody was so taken by him and everybody saw the potential, especially coming into this year after last year, when we saw the glimpses of just a ton of potential. Then this year he shows up to spring training bigger, and we saw the immediate difference in power that he had right away in spring training. And then obviously when the season started, the same thing. And since then, it has just been growth. Of course, he goes through his extended slumps at times, and he looks a little bit rough at the plate sometimes. But, I mean, on the whole this year, the growth we have seen is amazing. And I only expect to see more of it considering the rate of growth that's happened in such little time, honestly. And he's still only 26 years old. I mean, after that grand slam today, guys, his batting average over 250, and I expect that to go up and up and up as the years go along. And he just continues to develop at the plate with all of his talents. And he's got 24 bombs now. See if he can hit 25 before the end of the season next Sunday. He's over 60 RBIs. OPS in the low to mid 800s, usually in the lower 800s. That's still really good, especially if you're going to get the defense you get from him most of the time. Sometimes he makes couple of questionable plays at first base, but you're seeing the growth at catcher. Today he made an amazing scoop behind the plate, too, when he was moved to catcher after Wells was subbed out of the game. I mean, he's just getting better and better, guys. That's the exciting part. We've seen so much good this year, and he's only continuing to improve. So 2026 ought to be really good. Lots to look forward to with Ben Rice, and today was just a capitalization of that. My God. That was an absolute nuke to right center field, more towards center, right into the seats after so much quiet offense and the occasional blown scoring opportunities today. And then he just does that to ignite the team. Jazz joined in right after that with his 31st home run of the year. Even Volpe added on after that. Got some Volpe talking points for you later on. So today's game, just really epic, finishing off a series win 3 out of 4 in Baltimore for the Yankees. Very well could have, and some might argue, should have been a sweep because the one night that they did lose was highly irritating, and some might even argue unnecessary. But regardless, they still took the series like they absolutely had to, and that's what's important. So we'll go more in on what happened this past week and what's to look forward to, what's ahead for the final week of the Major League Baseball regular season for the Yankees in particularly, where everything stands as of now amidst all of that, and just do some good old team analysis like we usually do every week, my friends. But just a couple of updates for you and a couple of reminders too. Start the reminder. So I will be with you here again next week for the 5th week in a row to finish off the regular season, put a nice little cap on everything. The week after that, though, as a reminder, I will be away for the weekend. So the weekend of October 4th, and I know this is remarkably bad timing because the playoffs are starting right after next weekend. So I'm not even going to be able to give you immediate reaction to the wild card round, so that stinks. But regardless, I'm going to be away, out of town, the following weekend. So the weekend of October 4th, I'm not going to be doing an episode. But I will be back the following weekend. I believe that'll be on the 12th? Yeah, it's the 12th. So that's when I'll be back with another episode, and God only knows where the Yankees, just things in general throughout baseball, will be by then once the wild card round is over and the ALDS and the NLDSs are all either right in the midst of action or honestly maybe even done by then. Let me move forward here a little bit. So by the time we're at the 12th, let's see here. Wow, so the 12th, it'll either be the very, very end of the ALDSs. The ALDS will be done already, both ALDSs. And the only chance, wow, that's nuts. So when I talk to you on the 12th, it'll already be, that's crazy. The AL and NLCS will just be getting underway. The ALCS will actually be beginning. So again, really bad timing, but that's how it falls sometimes. Even if I did do Sunday, I would just be covering the wild card and maybe the beginning of the DS, but then the CS would already be starting the following week. So it's just, it goes by quick, guys, especially in the playoffs. The regular season goes by quick. How quick do you think the playoffs are going to go? So we'll talk Sunday. The regular season will end. 2 days after that, next Tuesday, will be when the wild card rounds begin. And then when we speak again, when we yap again, I should say, on the 12th, that'll be the first game of the ALCS, the day that we yap again on the 12th. So the Yankees will either be there or they won't be. I think it's pretty obvious the Yankees are going to make the playoffs, period, at this point, and the first wild card's looking good, although I don't want to speak too soon. The division, we know where that's at. We'll talk about that in a bit, but that is nuts. So that's what's going to be. Going to be wrapping up the regular season, and then next you hear from me, the ALCS, not the DS, the CS will be getting underway that very day, the 12th. That is bonkers. Wow. So yeah, a little scheduling reminder for you. So not going to be here for October 5th, but we'll be back October 12th. And we'll see where the hell everything's at by then, guys. But if you want to keep up with me, I always prompt you to do this, sometimes at the beginning of some episodes, but always at the end. If you want to keep up with me, even between gaps of episodes when big things are happening in baseball or otherwise, you could always follow me on socials, guys, especially Twitter. That's my moment-to-moment thoughts right on there. So go follow me on Twitter, at Mike Scudero. MikeScudiero. Go follow that handle on Twitter to keep up with my minute-to-minute thoughts, whether it be with my life or baseball or just about any of my other interests. But especially when it comes to the Yankees, if you want to keep up with me and my thoughts between when we yap next Sunday and then when we yap next after that 2 weeks later. If you want to know my thoughts throughout the wild card round and the DS, you get all of them right there. And you can follow me on Facebook as well, Mike Scudero NY, or my Instagram, Mike Scuds97. I post on Instagram pretty often as well, especially on my story when it comes to immediately reacting to things. So go follow me on socials if you're concerned about not hearing from me, particularly on this show, after next week for about a week or two. You should go do that. So that is the first thing. Second thing is, on top of recapping this past week and also just doing team analysis, talking about some of the hot topics throughout the Yankee community and thereby maybe even in a couple of instances some baseball overall topics, that is really going to be it for episode 264 because in Yankees news, to be honest, other than Brent Hedrick continuing to work his way back from his injury, and that's pretty much all there is to that because there's really no other news to report on that. Anything additional on top of what we spoke about last week with him, he just continues to work his way back. There's really not much more to talk about in Yankees news. It's been pretty quiet this past week, so not really much of a news segment this week. And also no social media segment again today. I figured just another cool episode to just shoot the crap today with you on my end and just talk generally about what's going on with the Yankees, what's going on with the situation with the wild card, the division, certain players, a certain MVP race that I know a lot of people love to talk about, and we spoke a ton about last week. So if you want to hear some of my thoughts on that, I would just listen back to last week's episode, to be honest, because I might reiterate some of them today, but I don't intend on going as in on detail because I still hold the same opinion, if I'm being really honest. And I would think it's common sense, but with a particular fan base, it doesn't appear to be so. And sometimes you just have to accept that you're not going to have certain people see reason. So it's really just not really worth going in on at some point. And it's just, just step away and go about your business and let it play out the way it'll play out because it's just not worth debating anymore. It's not. You could look at numbers, you could acknowledge numbers, you could ignore numbers. And if people are just not going to accept the truth and just look at things how they are, then I don't really find the need to continue having a sports debate at that point, because if people are just going to ignore what's right in front of them, then what's the point of talking at that point? Just back out and just go about your day, So we'll talk a little bit about that later. Again, obviously the race I'm talking about is Aaron Judge and Cal Raleigh, but if you want to hear my in-depth details and arguments, hell, I'll probably reiterate it later. I repeat myself like crazy, but especially go back and listen to last week, because although their numbers have both changed since the last time we spoke, obviously, I still have the same opinion. So it's really unchanged. But aside from my ADD just derailing the discussion once again here, that was my original point, that there's really no other news to talk about for the Yankees this past week, if I'm being honest. And no social media segment this week. I mean, just had a lot going on this weekend, and then I just sort of sat on it and said, well, but it's almost time to record, so kind of ran out of time again for that. I promise I will try to get one out for you for next week to symbolize the end of the season at the very least. So we're just going to yap today, like we always do, but just really do our team analysis, recap what happened, look to what's ahead, talk about where things are at, and hit on some of the hottest topics that majorly have people's attention today. That's really the docket for today's episode, my friends. So why don't we actually just get started just recapping what did happen this past week and then going from there. Second to last Yapping Yankees time machine of the season. Let's go.
This is where the fun begins.
Yes, this week you're actually right, Anakin. This past week was mostly fun, so I got to give that one to you. You get a W on that one. You miscalculated some other weeks calling it fun when it wasn't, but this past week, for the most part, you are correct. However, unfortunately, the week didn't start off that way because the first game in Minnesota, Madonna me, was this game frustrating. So, yeah, Woods Richardson basically carved up the Yankees lineup without any mercy whatsoever. Just top to bottom, absolute relentless annihilation. Insane. The Yankees were 2 hit on the entire night. Only Caballero and Goldschmidt got hits in this game, and that's basically everything that happened. And the shame of it is that Rodon majorly mirrored the start that he had prior to this, going 6 innings and 2 runs, so he did do well to keep the Twins mostly off the scoreboard and keep things competitive, but the offense didn't really get the memo, and they died. That's really all there is to it. Twins put up 7 runs, 5 runs after Rodon was done, all against Nuke Weaver, with Camilo Duvall coming in after that and obviously helping absolutely nothing. As we've well established by now for weeks and weeks, that has often been the trend since the Yankees acquired him at the deadline, and that continued here. So Weaver and Duvall making a mess of things and just taking the game out of reach in the 7th inning, and the Yankees lost 7-0. So with the Yankees, a team who usually just bullies the hell out of the Twins, that was just didn't see that coming. I just didn't see it at all. I don't think anybody really did. So now at this point, starting to panic a little bit because obviously with everything as highly pressurized as it is with the wild card and the division, the remote possibility there still was for it to happen at that time. You know, the Yankees were having an easier schedule for the final 2 weeks, starting with this very series. We just got done talking about that majorly last week, right? And now you see them starting off a series against a team that they usually just mollywop, and they're starting off the series like this to begin these next 2 weeks of gameplay, and these are games they shouldn't be losing, especially not in that fashion, even though it's nothing new what happened with the bullpen that particular night, but it starts to make you think a little bit and get a little worried. So then they moved on to Tuesday, and I was really curious to see how they were going to come out in this game. And until the mid to later part of the game, it was actually a very pleasant surprise what began to take place right when things started off. Now, Schlittler didn't have the best outing at all. 4 2/3, 4 runs allowed, 5 walks, 3 hits. He just allowed a lot of traffic on the bases and didn't go very well for him. But fortunately, the offense came out swinging for him right off rip. Cody Bellinger, the GOAT, RBI single, put them up 1-0, and then a Stanton sac fly put them up 2-0 right away early in the top of the first. Then the Twins crept a little bit closer, making it 2-1, another RBI single. But then the Yankees widened the gap big time. Top of the second, Austin Wells, RBI double. The other GOAT, Trent Grisham, with his 31st home run of the year, 2-run shot, made it 5-1. And then Stanton's RBI single made it 6-1, so they just went on to expand their lead, thankfully. Then in the top of the third, you had the Yankees add on even more. Trent and Judge with a pair of sac flies. And then a Ben Rice, speaking of the GOAT, the other GOAT. So many GOATs up and down this lineup. That's been a usual trend this year, except for the very rare occasion where they go quiet. But for the most part, we all know how good the Yankees offense has been on the whole. So Ben Rice, RBI double, that made it 9-1. And then Volpe capitalized even more so, and in hindsight, thank God for this, actually went on to mean something despite the score. Top of the fourth, made it 10-1, an RBI single of his own, driving home Jazz. Now, this is when things started to get just a tad freaky. Schlittler allows a 2-run homer and then allows another run to score on a wild pitch in the bottom of the fifth. So it's 10-4. Not bad yet, you say. After Schlittler was done in the game, a little bit later on, you had Ryan Yarbrough come in, who usually is very reliable, especially in his brief time in the rotation as a starter when they desperately needed him and had little other choice. Well, here in this relief appearance, he may or may not have had a meltdown, and it may or may not have been 10-8 by the time he was done doing so. So now, In a game they once led 10-1, you had your hands behind your back, clasped behind your head, and you had your feet kicked up on your coffee table as a fan, didn't you? Think we all did. Well, unclamp your hands and get your feet off the damn table, because from 10-1, we now had a ball game. Ridiculously so. And the offense wasn't going to do anything more because, they kind of did everything else they already had to do. So why the hell are they going to try to do more? I know you adjust on the fly, maybe add on a couple of more insurance runs when your bullpen is just doing what they've managed to do for most of the season, and that's have an absolute conniption. But they already scored 10 runs. They had 16 freaking hits on the night. How much are you going to ask for? So then finally they were able to scratch and claw their way to the bottom of the ninth inning. These poor guys out in that bullpen, given a 10-4 lead by the time Schlittler was done, up 6 runs. God forbid you ask that of them, right? Bednar comes in. He's really the only one that's, really, really reliable out there, as we have well established. Even he gave up a run, but that's all that he did give up. Still got the job done. Up 10-1 at one point. The Yankees won 10-9.
Oh my God!
Oh, God. Have you ever felt like you won the game, but it feels like a loss? This was pretty much the definition of that. I never felt like the Yankees lost a game that they won more in my entire 18 years watching this team, I think. Just a ridiculous baseball game. And especially, again, like I said with the first game, the most baffling part of it being that it was against the Twins. This doesn't usually happen. What the hell is going on? So now I'm just praying at this point that with the disgraceful first game and the heart attack second game that didn't even have to come remotely close to being so, that they just take the friggin' series at this point. Just take the series and get the hell out of Minnesota. And thankfully they did. So in this game starting for the Yankees, it was Luis Gil, and he was no gift to watch either. In 4 2/3, 9 hits, 2 walks, only struck out a couple in 4 2/3. 5 runs, 4 of them earned, because obviously Yankees can't help themselves. They've got to make an error at some point. We know the deal. And the error is actually just on Luis Gil himself on a pickoff attempt. So yeah, he just had himself a lovely night. Absolute lovely night over there. But nonetheless, the Yankees still managed to get the job done despite him being all over the place. Cody Bellinger started things off once again at the top of the first. Absolute legend. RBI single. And then the Twins actually took a 2-1 lead off of Gil and the Yankees in the bottom of the second when there was a passed ball by Ben Rice, unfortunately. Still got work to do at catcher, but still looking good at other times, so just keep growing at that. That's all I'm saying. And then Royce Lewis got an RBI single of his own at that point, so then it was 2-1 Twins. At this point, I'm like, what the actual hell? But then, fortunately, Trent the GOAT Grisham, 32nd home run of the year, solo shot, retied the game, 2-2. And then the Yankee offense thankfully took off after that. Jason Dominguez, good to see him getting a lot more action this past week. Yankees finding ways to get him back into that lineup a bit. RBI double here to make it 3-2, and then Trent Grisham once again. His 33rd and most recent home run, a 3-run shot driving Jason and Caballero home to give the Yankees a 6-2 lead. Trent's, again, I want to keep mentioning this because it truly is unbelievable what he's managed to accomplish this year. By far a career year. It's not even close for him personally. Most home runs he's ever had in a single season prior to 2025 was 17. He has 6 more games left this year to double that past number for the most home runs he had in a single season before this. That is insane.
A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
Yeah, I'd say so, Palpatine. Absolutely. And then, scoring on a balk was Ben Rice with Cody at the plate. So then they took a 7-2 lead. Then the Twins closed the gap a bit more against Gil. So it was 7-5 by the time the bottom of the 5th was done. So it was a pretty close game for a bit, but then the Yankee offense got back to work late in the game. Ryan McMahon, against all odds, and you can say that every time he gets a hit because of how disgraceful he's been at the plate. You love his defense, but you admit that he does nothing at the plate. That's just what you get with him. It is what it is. But he got an RBI single here, made it 8-5, and then in the top of the ninth for some extra insurance with his 29th and most recent home run. Who else but Cody Bellinger? 2-run shot to make it 10-5, and that was the final. So thankfully, despite the highly unnecessary stress that we witnessed for much of this series in Minnesota, the Yankees managed to claw their way out of there with the series victory. Oh, God. And they proceeded to move on to Baltimore, and it was another example of getting somewhere really late. We spoke about this, I think it was either last week or the week before, when people were talking about how the Yankees usually show up to games. Now they perform after they fly back home and arrive there very late, or they go to another town and arrive there very late, and how they usually are the following day. Well, this proved that, hey, just like everybody else, it is not absolutely impossible to perform at least decently after getting in late the night before during a road trip. Who knew? That is just not some cheap excuse. I mean, yeah, maybe it gets to you sometimes, but people are out there talking about the Yankees and using it as an excuse that, oh, it's almost like completely expected and totally fine. No, you figure it out, dude. Guys are professionals. And not to go down this route, but you are paid pretty damn handsomely for it. Most of them who have earned their contracts actually hit free agency and earn the money. But nonetheless, you're still at the professional level. At some point, I'm not saying you go out there and do great after getting in late every single time, but you got to have a game, or at least a couple of games, where you just figure it the hell out. I mean, what are we doing here? Fortunately, Thursday was an example of that. They came out looking great. Absolutely wonderful. Thursday was a gift. It was a very rare, relaxing game, as a matter of fact. Max Fried had his, I would argue, best start as a Yankee, and one of the better starting performances I've seen in years. One of the better ones. Not saying necessarily the best, but probably top 5 in the last few years from a Yankee starter. He looked phenomenal. He went 7 innings, could have gone 8, but the Yankees probably want to preserve him a little bit, make sure his arm is extra good to go for the playoffs, and I can respect that to a degree. I kind of understand, as exciting as it would have been to see him get another inning of work and just continue the masterclass that he unleashed on the Orioles on this particular night. But he did go 7 shutout innings, only allowing 3 hits, walking 1, and striking out 13 guys. All for his 18th win of the year, driving his ERA down to 2.92. Let me tell you something. Max Fried's changeup was as good as I have seen it all year. His curveball was disgusting. It often is, but something about that night, wow. Fastball, he ramped it up even to 98 at times. Fastball up. The Orioles hitters looked like they had no idea what was coming. They weren't seeing the ball, and they just didn't even know how to play baseball. He just had them baffled the whole night, and it was a gift to watch. He just had an iconic game. There's no two ways about it. Just did a fantastic job. He's 18-5 on the year, 2.92 ERA now. And all of those strikeouts, by the way, have now gotten him to 182 on the year. And that is also a single-season record for Max Fried throughout his whole career. The most strikeouts he ever had in a season prior to this one was 173 back in 2019. He also had 170 in 2022. So he has never reached or crossed 180 before, not even 175. He's now at 182, and he's probably going to start at least one more game for the Yankees in these last 6 coming up here. And he's also got on his arm this year, he's got 188 and a third innings on his arm this year as well, which is also a record for him in 1 year. He had 185 and a third in 2022 for the most prior to 2025. So he's probably going to make it well into the 190s. That is a workhorse year. If you're like 190, 200 plus, you had yourself a workhorse year. That's good. You don't see that too often anymore, honestly. Anything remotely close to 200 innings, you don't see that all that much anymore. So, I mean, for guys like back in CeCe's day and even further back than that, that was a regular occurrence. But in today's game, it's just not quite like that anymore. So really an incredible, incredible season continuing for Max Fried. First season in Yankee pinstripes, being the Yankees' interim ace, as I like to call him. Just a terrific start here. I mean, just one of the better outings I've seen from a Yankee starter in years. Rosario kicked things off scoring in the top of the first. 2-run double. I wish he got more playing time, man. I understand that his specialty is against lefties, but he's been a lot of fun to have around, both as like a sort of a cheerleader and also just whenever he's called upon to do his job, he goes out there and he friggin' does it, man. Great pickup for the Yankees. Really great. I knew it definitely had its ups. I mean, at first I was like, why a little bit? But then I really just took a pause and looked into things. I was like, you know what? This has really good potential. And it's worked out very well whenever they've happened to use him, and I wish that they used him even more. But he kicked things off there. Austin Wells, RBI single, top of the 5th. Even Paul Goldschmidt, RBI single in the top of the 7th, followed by a Judge sac fly, and then a Stanton 2-run double, make it 7-0. And that was the ball game. 7-zip, Yanks get the win. Friday, here was the one loss that was, it was just really annoying. I mean, what else can I say? Will Warren goes out, 5 1/3. 4 hits, 3 runs, only 1 was earned. And that 1 earned run was on a Mountcastle solo shot in the bottom of the 2nd. But the other 2 runs, all the way in the 6th inning when he was towards the end of his outing, that's usually when you start to see him just run out of gas a little bit. But you had multiple errors in this inning. You had Will Warren completely miss a ball on the mound by Westberg. And then you had Jazz throw a ball away. So back-to-back errors, and then 2 runs would later score on a sac fly and then on a ground out, on a force-out play. So 2 more runs would score. Both of those were unearned. Just more silly errors being played. So it's like the Yankees, such an interesting dynamic. Sometimes they'll come out like on Thursday, even after a night where they got little to no sleep. So that can't be used as an excuse for this time. But they'll come out playing clean baseball for that. And they just come out the following night. And it's like this night was the one where they just got in late the night prior at like 3:30 in the morning. They just come out looking like their stupid side again. It's like they have dissociative identity disorder. It's really weird. They just like flip-flop this behavior of gameplay. I understand you can't be that good every day, and I'm perfectly aware of that, but it's just funny how one day they'll look like, really on it, and who knows what this team could do in October, and then the other day you're like, do they even belong in October the way they look sometimes? It's fun. It's just funny. It's funny to laugh about sometimes, but they just sort of looked that way again in the 6th inning. And then even after Warren was done, then Tim Hill allowed a run of his own in the following inning. Just prior to that, the Yankees had scored their only 2 runs on the night anyway. It was on a Jazz 2-run shot for his 30th. This was actually his home run that granted him 30-30. Like we were talking about possibly happening last week, saying that I really thought he was going to do it, and this was the night that he did it. Unfortunately, surrounding circumstances couldn't have people celebrate to the utmost because it wasn't a good night for the Yankees and for the team overall, and fans were highly irritated, such as myself. But you could still individually celebrate, and it is a huge accomplishment for Jazz now that it's officially done. And since he hit his 31st today, I mean, he could steal 1 more base and be 31-31. Even Michael Kay said that. It's a funny comment. But reaching 30-30 here, guys, especially for a second baseman, you put it into perspective, that's humongous. It really, really is. A decent amount of 30-30s have been accomplished in Major League Baseball history. But I mean, from a second baseman, second basemans are typically not known for their offensive production, guys, especially power. So not a long list of second basemen, period, who have accomplished this, but especially if you look at when it comes to Yankees second basemen who have done this, and the list is even shorter. I mean, it's just insane. You had Bobby Bonds do it for the Yankees in 1975, and then you had Alfonso Soriano do it for the Yankees in 02 and 03. Other than that, Yankees, second base, it's Jazz. It's a big accomplishment, guys. And I think at this point in time, it's safe to say and completely fair to say that despite the occasional frustrating things Jazz does as a player, whether it be defensively, I mean, just another throwing error I just mentioned before, and his occasional approach at the plate where he just strikes out too often and sometimes just, I mean, you see him have really good bat-to-ball skills sometimes, and you just see him going for the long ball a little too much sometimes maybe, and just maybe not having the best approach at the plate occasionally as a result. But overall, I mean, Jazz he's been a phenomenal asset to the Yankees since coming back from his injury way earlier on in the season. Since then, he's just had a phenomenal 2025. Before that, it was absolutely brutal. And if you just take those few weeks out at the very beginning of the season, you're probably talking about fantastic numbers this year, even better than they already are for Jazz in 2025. And I think he's definitely earned himself a place in this team. Where else are you going to get this kind of production, particularly from second base? At that point, I just kind of put up with the occasional stupid crap. I mean, most players are going to do stupid crap every once in a while. So, despite the occasional frustration, you can't dispute the kind of season Jazz has had, especially in light of reaching 30-30. My God. Phenomenal. I mean, you remember him how dreadful he was in October and how that took its way into the start of 2025, but then he got hurt and came back, and since then, it's almost as exciting as when Jazz first got here last year at the trade deadline. How he performed from then through to the end of the year is awesome, and it's sort of like that ever since his injury this year. So great stuff. Huge accomplishment for Jazz. Big congratulations in order for sure. But then the Orioles tacked on another run in the bottom of the seventh and sealed what would be a 4-2 victory. Offense absolutely dead outside of Jazz's two-run shot, historic two-run shot. And then Will Warren mostly looked all right, but then a couple of errors, one by himself. In the sixth, didn't help at all. He couldn't make it out of that. And that was the end of that. Last couple of days, a lot more fun, that's for sure, especially today. But we don't really have to recap today's game because we sort of just did before. But yesterday's game, series tied up at 1 at this point. Rodon retaking the mound. I expected him to have a kick-ass night, and he did. 7 innings, 4 hits only, 1 run, 1 walk, and 8 strikeouts, earning his 17th win of the year, 17-9, ERA 3.04. And again, you want to talk about phenomenal seasons in the starting rotation. 17 wins, ERA barely over 3, 198 strikeouts, and 189 in a third innings. He's definitely going to go over 200 strikeouts, which is just great. Phenomenal for Rodon. A whip, a touch over 1, which is fantastic. By far the best overall season he's had with the Yankees since coming here, starting in 2023. Amazing. Amazing for Rodon. You can't say a thing about him. I mean, I've been very hard on him. Very, very hard on him. 2023 was awful between the injuries and the very poor pitching even when he got back from it. 2024, he went through that month and a half to 2 month stretch where it was absolutely dreadful. Otherwise, he did very good outside of that. Bit up and down, turbulent in the playoffs, but other than that, looked fantastic. And this year has been all wonderful. Exactly, finally getting what they paid for in 2025. It seems like he is finally fully adjusted to being here and accepting his role as an upper rotation arm. I love seeing that. So, shut me the hell up, man. That's what I like. I like to have that happen. When I'm giving somebody a really hard time, I want to have my mouth shut. And he has shut my mouth for 2025. Fantastic by Rodon. And I expect him to, on top of his prior outing in Minnesota, in which he didn't really even do a bad job at all. I expected good things, especially against a team like the Orioles, and he delivered. And the Yankee offense did their thing as well right away in the top of the first. 3-run bomb by Giancarlo Stanton. You want to talk about history as well? This was home run number 450 for Giancarlo Stanton. So yet another congratulations is in order for another player. 450 career home runs for my freaking boy.
Give me a hell yeah!
You know, this is one of those things where it feels really good to know that like 99% of the time, the last few years especially, I've just been a huge defender of his. It's one of those things that feels good when it comes to celebrating things like this, man. That was his 21st of the year, gave the Yankees a 3-0 lead. Speaking of big home runs, number 49 and most recent for Judge after that in the top of the third, made it 4-0 solo shot, an absolute nuke down the left field line. Technically 50 for him if you want to talk about that GMS quote-unquote foul ball. But regardless, number 49 for him on paper. In our minds and in reality, we know that it's number 50. But we're just waiting on that big 5-0 for Judgy at this point. Didn't hit one for the rest of the night last night. Didn't hit one today. But we're just waiting on it for him to cross 50 for the second year in a row and for the fourth time in his 10-year career. So one season short of half of his career once he hits 50 this year, because he will do it in this next week. I'll be shocked if he doesn't within the next 6 games. He will have hit 50 or more home runs. That's insane. They were talking about how amazing it was that Ohtani has crossed 50 again this year for the second year in a row, and how he is one of very few to have ever done that. Judge is one home run away from doing the exact same thing after having hit 58 last year. I mean, you think about it. Even in the last, once he does it this year, and he technically already has, because, listen, the GMS ball that they called foul, that was a home run. Sorry. So he has 50 in my mind. He just does. Even if people don't want to acknowledge it, I'm acknowledging it. So go scratch if you don't want to. But in 3 out of the last 4 years, he has hit 50 or more home runs. 3 out of the last 4. Had the 62 and 22. Had the 58 last year. And once he officially hits 50, even for the record books this year, he'll have 50 this year. 3 out of the last 4 years, 50 plus. Insane. So just waiting on that home run. And then Jazz added on in the top of the 5th. RBI single made it 5-0. And then Trent RBI single on top of the 6th made it 6-0. Final score was 6-1. And after Rodon had pitched his 7, Weaver and Bednar had closed it out for the W. And then today, as I had said before, they won 7-1 in 10 innings. Therefore, taking the series best 3 out of 4. So this past week saw the Yankees going 5-2. Not a bad week. Highly necessary. 6-1 would have been even better. But nonetheless, 5-2. I'll take that. That's fine. It just sucks that because Friday was also a night that the Blue Jays lost to the Royals. I mean, the Blue Jays lost to the Royals Friday and yesterday. So that sucks. They lost an opportunity to game one more game. On Friday, they'd be one back if they just swept the Orioles. They'd be one game behind, and the division would actually be very much back in the picture at this point with only 6 to go. Still kind of in the picture. It's not mathematically done yet, but, hypothetically and in our own heads might be another story. But nonetheless, very good past week for the Yankees. 2 out of 3 in Minnesota, 3 out of 4 in Baltimore. That's what you got to do, man. Easy schedule. Beating the bad ones is a part of the game, too. You got to do it. So very nicely done by the Yankees this past week, but they got one more to go, 6 games worth. Looking ahead to the final week. Tomorrow, the 22nd, the Yankees have an off day. Nobody in the East or of significance in the wild card will play. As a matter of fact, nobody in the American League, period, is even playing tomorrow. You have the Nationals and Braves in one game. You have another game, Padres and Brewers, and then finally Cardinals and Giants. Just 3 games, all National League. So tomorrow night we could just take a night off. And then Tuesday the 23rd, the Yankees return home to finish off the season with 2 home series, each consisting of 3 games. First 3 will be against the White Sox beginning on Tuesday, 7:05 Eastern. That'll be Smith against Heel at the stadium. Wednesday, 7:05 Eastern as well. This game, once more, will not be on Prime. No Prime Wednesday for this one. 7:05 Eastern. The White Sox have not announced their starter, but Max Fried will be making what is likely his final start of 2025. And then Thursday, also at 7:05 Eastern, Yankees and White Sox. The Yankees have not announced their pitcher for this game as of yet, but Davis Martin, will be going for the White Sox on that night to finish off the 3-game set, which leads us into the final series of the season, starting Friday the 26th. The Yankees will see the Orioles again, although this time it'll be in the Bronx and just for 3. 7:05 Eastern on Friday. No pitching matchups announced for any of these 3 games. Saturday will be 1:05 Eastern. And then finally, Sunday the 28th, game number 162 of 2025. Like all other game 162s, will be played at 3:05 p.m. Eastern, which is give or take the same time as every other game around the league that day. And then the season's over, guys. Tuesday, the 30th, is when the wild card rounds begin. Best 2 out of 3. Now, with all of that being said, with the recap of this past week and what's ahead for the final week, where things stand now. The Blue Jays lead the American League East. They're up 2 games over the Yankees. Blue Jays have a 90-66 record. Yankees are 88-68. 2 games back. 2.5 behind the Yankees are the Red Sox with an 85-70 record. They are playing tonight against the Rays. Obviously not sure what's going to happen there. If the Red Sox lose the game, they will be 3 games behind the Yankees with 6 to go. So that's going to start looking really good there. The Yankees will likely secure second place at that point by the time all is said and done. And obviously also at that point, they'll have no chance at the first wild card, considering the Yankees are the first wild card. So the Yankees will likely secure home field for that wild card series either way. And now the way that the wild card looks right now, as I just said, Yankees occupy the first one. They are 2.5 games currently. If the Red Sox happen to lose to the Rays tonight, they will be 3 games over the Red Sox, who are in the second wild card. If the Red Sox beat the Rays tonight, Yankees will only be 2 games over them, which is still decent considering there are only 6 left with the Yankees schedule they have remaining. And depending on how the Red Sox do tonight, right now before the final result of their game, they're only 1 game ahead of the third wild card team, which right now is Houston, no longer the Mariners, because particularly this weekend, the Mariners and the Astros are playing each other. The AL West, as we've spoken about, has been one of the more exciting divisional races lately. And the Mariners have been whooping their ass this weekend, so they actually knocked the Astros out of first and into the wild card race, right into the third wild card, which was previously held by the Mariners. And right now, that just makes the Mariners the second best division winner. Now, the crappy situation is because of circumstances and just who's where in each division. The sad part is that even though the Yankees right now are the first wild card, which would imply that they're not really that close to the top team in the league, well, not so. Just because of divisional circumstances and positioning, the Yankees right now are a wild card team, but they have the second best record in the American League. So can you imagine if the season ended today, or even by the time the season ends next week, if things are still in this position by chance? Let's say the Mariners are the second best division team and they get a bye. So they don't have to play in that first round, in the wild card round. But the Yankees will have to play in that wild card round as the first wild card team, even though if things ended today, the Yankees have a better record. How screwed up is that? So that's just, that's the way it goes sometimes. Even the Tigers, the worst division winner. I mean, the worst division winner has to play in the wild card round anyway, but the Yankees are also better than them too. The only team the Yankees aren't better than are the Blue Jays, and they're only 2 games worse than them. But how about the Tigers, man? Speaking of that, how about that collapse? I mean, you have the Tigers only a game over the Guardians. Cleveland was how many games back just a few weeks ago? What a collapse by Detroit. I mean, good Lord. They have lost so many games. I mean, they're on a 6-game losing streak right now. But the losing they've done and the resurgence of Cleveland in the meantime. I mean, even just their last 10 games each are good examples of each one. In their last 10 games, the Guardians have won 9 of them. In the Tigers' last 10 games, they've lost 9 of them. I mean, it's just crazy. So now the top spot in the Central is a flip of a coin. Now that there's still 6 games left to go in the season. So who knows what's going to happen there? And you still got the West being really close. I mean, the Mariners and the Astros also play a little bit later. I think the Mariners are going to win again. And if they do, they'll be 3 games over them. That'll decide that division pretty much in my eyes. So the Mariners will be a first-place team. And they'll probably get the bye. Again, there's still 6 games left and things are unbelievably close everywhere. But, still, it's insane. Absolutely insane. The Rangers really did come back down to earth and they fell off. They're in a 7-game losing streak and, they're really not going to... They're not going to get the wild card at this point at all. They're about to be eliminated. So, I don't know. Very, very interesting. In the next couple of days, the Rangers will be eliminated. So, in a day or two, it's really, all that's going to be talked about is just who's going to win the Central. And it's insane because, if you think about it, because the The Astros and Cleveland and the Tigers, all three of those teams right now, despite Houston being in a different division than either of those other two, the Guardians and the Tigers, they're all only about a game apart from each other. So in other words, depending on what the Astros do, the Astros can easily fall out of it too. But right now, before gameplay tonight with the Astros and the Mariners, if the Astros win tonight, there'll be a game over the Guardians, who are the next team outside of the third wild card. If the Tigers lose first place and the Astros keep winning by chance, and Cleveland overtakes the Tigers will go from being a first place team to not even being in a playoff spot if things stayed as they were right now. Isn't that insane? Because Cleveland, even if the Astros lost tonight, there would be a dead tie for the third wild card between Houston and Cleveland. So let's say the Astros lose tonight, which again, I think they will. So let's just say they lose. The third wild card, it'll be in a dead tie between Cleveland and Houston. But if Cleveland keeps winning in the next few days and Houston goes on a win streak and the Tigers lose first place in the Central, they will go into second place where Cleveland is now and potentially be left out of the playoffs altogether just by falling into second place. These are things that are objectively nuts to think about. Absolutely nuts. That's how crazy and honestly unfair the brackets can be. Like the formation of everything. Wild. So this next week of baseball, this last week here, it's going to be really, really exciting to see how everything goes. And it's that feeling, man, the end coming up. It's the last lap. That's really it. It's the last lap of the season. Last time around, last week around. And when things are this close, it's super fascinating. You got a similar dynamic going on in the National League right now. I don't know who's keeping up with the National League wildcard picture. As far as divisions are concerned in the National League, I think they're more than decided, especially in the East and the Central. I mean, you got the Phillies 12 games over the Mets up in first place. And then you have the Brewers 7 games over the Cubs, who have also been fantastic. They're the first wild card team. But that's just how good the Brewers have been. Despite how good the Cubs have been, 7 games behind the Brewers in second place. But Cubs are probably going to be the first wild card team, so good for them. Just unfortunate they happen to be in the division that they're in. And then even in the West right now, it's the Padres and Dodgers. The Dodgers lead them by 3. I mean, that division is probably over, especially because the Padres have the Brewers coming up. That's not a favorable matchup to come. As long as the Dodgers win at least a couple of games in this next week, the Padres aren't going to be able to bump them out of first place. So it seems like the divisions are decided. And even the wild cards are mostly definitive there as far as the first and second. The Cubs are way up there in the first one, trailed by 3 games. The Padres, 3 games behind them. So the Padres are the second wild card. And the third wild card and the teams behind it, that's where the interesting part lies. Right now, as of the conclusion of gameplay today, the Mets, if the season ended today, would miss the playoffs.
Holy crap!
Yeah, I'd say that's definitely worthy of a holy crap from a team that just recently acquired Juan Soto, devastatingly so for us Yankee fans last winter. And then you had all the other improvements that they made all around the team. They have these exciting new kids now, in McLean and Tung, and just so many other things going on. And I don't know, just a lot of things that a lot of Met fans expected that just didn't pan out when the games were actually played. I mean, and when it comes to Soto, it's really no fault of his, at least with the last month or so, because for most of the year, I mean, people were questioning him greatly, and rightfully so, but man, has he been on a tear the last month and a half or so. He has earned his money and completely turned his season around. And in a couple of aspects, bafflingly so, he's even done better than his season with the Yankees, especially in home runs, with 1 more now, 42. Would have never imagined that. With many other stats, just a tad under his Yankee stats, so not quite there yet in many regards, but he majorly turned his season around, no doubt about that. It's turned into a great season again. Took a damn long time to get there, but he did it. So it's not his fault, but still, the first season with him there, and you wouldn't expect that at all in light of everything. But the Mets would miss the playoffs if the season ended today. Fortunately for them, or unfortunately, depending on how things play out, if they're just subjected for more pain or if they happen to save themselves in this last week here. But they would not make the playoffs. They're in a dead tie with the Cincinnati Reds with an 80-76 record for that third wild card, and they're both 5 games behind the Padres for that second wild card. So neither of these teams are going any higher than the third wild card. Either way, they're going to be facing the third best division winner, which in this case is looking like it's going to be the Dodgers for best of 3 in LA. But who's going to win that third wild card is the main question in the National League. Mostly everything else, as I said, is decided. But it's insane. They're tied, but the Reds own the tiebreaker. Sort of like how with the Yankees and the Blue Jays, how the Blue Jays may have just a 2-game lead on the Yankees, but what makes matters even worse for the Yankees is the Blue Jays. And this is when this sort of thing might come into play when it comes to how important it is to defeat your divisional opponents, especially those who you might be tussling with for a key spot. That's why it's important to beat them head-to-head, because the Yankees do not have the tiebreaker against the Blue Jays either. So technically, if they ended in a tie, the Blue Jays would still win. So technically, the Yankees are 3 behind them, even though numerically they're 2. They're technically 3 behind because the Blue Jays own the tiebreaker. Same thing here if the season were to end between the Reds and the Mets. In their 6 matchups this year, the Reds own the tiebreaker. They won more games head-to-head against the Mets this year. So if it ended today, despite them being in a dead tie, the Reds would go to the playoffs and the Mets would be left out in the cold with everything they did to improve their team and with 3 wild cards and their payroll. I'd want to jump off my roof if I were a Met fan right now. It's just crazy. And it's not even done there, because behind them by 1 game are the Diamondbacks, who have resurged of late. So it's insane. It's almost a 3-way tie for the third wild card going into the last week of the season. So all around baseball, in many regards, crazy crap going on. Insane. So that's going to be thrilling to see what happens. And the Mets have the Cubs coming up. That is brutal. And the Cubs faced the Reds this weekend, and the Cubs did nothing to help the Mets out. They just rolled over and died against the Reds. I mean, the Cubs don't care. They got the first wild card virtually on lock. They know where they're going to end up at this point. They're not going to catch the Brewers for the division. That's done. So it's very interesting. So the Mets will face them for 3, and they face the Marlins in Miami to end the season. And the Marlins always play the Mets hard, especially in Miami, so that should be interesting. As far as the Reds, they face the Pirates for 3 games, Tuesday through Thursday, so that's a walk in the park for them. At least it should be. I think one of those games they're going to be running into Skeens, though, so that'll be tough. Yeah, it's on the 24th on Wednesday. They'll be running into Skeens, but we'll see otherwise what happens. And then over the weekend, they'll have the Brewers in Milwaukee. So that's going to be a tough finish for the Reds. Both teams have their work cut out for them, the Reds and the Mets. And the Diamondbacks could make a run too. Who knows? They're only a game behind the both of them right now. That is utter insanity. Really crazy. The Diamondbacks next weekend have the Padres, but then during the week, the Diamondbacks are going to be facing the Dodgers. So the Diamondbacks have a tough finish. Couple of the top teams in their own division. But still, it's going to be very interesting to see how that third wild card shakes out, man. A lot of interesting things to watch in these last 6 games, man. So stay glued to your baseball screens, bro. It's going to be nuts. So that's where things stand right now. All over the place. Some of the matchups that other teams have, and the Yankees, again, White Sox and Orioles to finish. Very favorable. We'll see everybody finishes out by the time 162 has come and gone. When it comes to each individual player on the Yankees, though, we'll just do some team analysis. Really already spoke about Fried and Rodon, glazed the hell out of them, and rightfully so, man, because my God, just phenomenal. And then elsewhere in the rotation, you have Schlittler, who today looked fantastic again. Started to slip a little bit towards the end, but especially at the beginning of his outings. A couple of them he's looked rough at the start, particularly in that outing against the Blue Jays where he just couldn't get people out to save his life. But otherwise, he just he's so dominant, man. That stuff, the fastball, 98, 99, 100, and how it's located and the movement on it at times, it's got so much life to it. The curveball is just filth. The cutter he even has is a very competitive pitch as well. He's gonna develop into just a fantastic pitcher, even better than he already is, man. He really, really is. Didn't get a decision today for his effort because of the low scoring until extra innings, but in what he has done so far, just amazing. Even in today's outing, with the effort that he gave in Baltimore. 5 1/3, got 6 strikeouts during that, only 3 hits, 1 walk, the 1 run. And you look at his stats for the year so far since the Yankees have called him up. 13 games and 66 innings, 75 strikeouts, 3.20s ERA. It's really good. He just gets a little wild at times, occasionally, and he just loses control. But this is stuff that's going to come with more experience, more reps, more starts. He's 24 years old. He was just called up in the middle of this year. It's uphill from here, man, from someone of that talent. Can't wait to see how he continues to develop. And speaking of development, Will Warren, he's just still up and down. Obviously, much of his second half had been fantastic. But then he goes out there and he'll lay an egg a few times. He'll even make an error occasionally like he did the other day. But otherwise, he usually starts out really well. But then you'll notice pitch count starts to get a bit up there. 5th, 6th inning comes around. Starts to lose control a little bit. It's a dynamic that's seen in quite a bit of his outings, so something to keep an eye on. But, I mean, he's definitely made strides in the right direction this year. Plenty of times. So you have that to hang your hat on if you're the Yankees watching him. 164 strikeouts and 157 in a third innings this year. ERA in the low 4s, I think he could definitely improve on that. Next year, if he continues to build on himself, maybe even, mid 3s, that'd be fantastic. And he'll definitely have a part next year. I mean, I see people saying, next year, where is he going to be in this rotation? Where's the room going to be for him or guys like Schlittler even? Like, it depends. What happens when Clark comes back? What happens when Cole comes back? Well, you got to remember something, guys. And I saw a lot of people forgetting these facts this past week. Some people were talking about it on Twitter. Got to remember, Cole is probably not going to be back till like May or June-ish. So at the very beginning of the season, that's another spot still open from his vacancy. And then Clark is not going to be back till likely 2027, guys. If he is going to return next year, it's not going to be till the very, very end. And depending on where things are and how things are going, and they might just choose to just sit him out the whole year and give him the rest of the year rest and then into the winter and just start him fresh in 27 at that point. Because he got Tommy John around right there in the middle of the season. Starting pitchers are usually anywhere from like 12, 13 to 14 or 15 months, something like that. If he's even reactivated next year, it's not going to be till the very end. So these are a couple of spots, at least for the first half, especially in Cole's case, still going to be available. So to fill those spots, you're probably still going to see a Will Warren maybe or a Cam Schlittler still getting opportunities to develop with some vacancies due to injury, at least in the first half for a chunk of it. So you got to keep that in mind too. Unless the Yankees happen to make even more moves this offseason. We have no idea what's going to happen this offseason, of course. A lot of that depends on how things end off here too, in the playoffs and so on and so forth. So that's still yet to come, long ways off. But you'll probably still see guys like Will Warren get reps, at least for a chunk of the first half. We'll see. And I hope he continues to build. Because you see the potential there, and you see how the pitches move, and I like it. But you see some concerning trends as well occasionally, and you just hope he figures it out. And then you have Luis Gil rounding things off, obviously still, like we always talk about, the tendency to get wild. But if you want to talk about a potential playoff rotation of just 3 guys, and people saying that, 3 guys isn't enough, how are they going to go far with that? They might have to move Schlittler to the bullpen if they're not even going to have 4. Well, in 2009, the Yankees won with 3. They won with Cece, Pettit, and Burnett. They did it. Not saying it's favorable, but it's certainly possible. And that was a while ago, and the game has very much changed since 2009. I'm not arguing that in the last 16 years. But it's been done, and it can be again. We saw what the Dodgers did last year with a massively injured team, particularly with their pitching in the rotation especially. It's not impossible. But Heel, especially in the event, and they can change this after the series if they'd like, but especially in the event that they do host the Red Sox at Yankee Stadium, because if the season were to end today, it would be the Yankees and Red Sox at Yankee Stadium for a best-of-3 in the wild card. I know a lot of people are already aware of this, but for those who aren't, Heel has done very well historically against the Red Sox, and if the series goes all three, if they each win one in the first two, and you need that decider in the third game, based off history at least, Heel's the one you want to be the third guy to face the Red Sox. Again, you could change that in future rounds if you want to switch things up, but that's some food for thought for the wild card round, at least if things end this way like they are now. But as long as Heel keeps his crap under control and doesn't get wild, he's going to have the strikeout stuff. And you know he's going to give you probably at least 5-6 solid innings, maybe something along those lines. And that's serviceable. You take that. So the starting rotation, again, for the occasional hiccup, other than that, they continue to go out there and do their thing. They really do. Not very many complaints out of them for the vast majority of the year. As we know, the bullpen's an entirely different story. But it's just so unfortunate, again, with the bullpen. You have your lower-tier guys like Yarbrough and Blackburn. And honestly, at this point, because how putrid he is, I'd even call Mark Leiter Jr. a lower-end guy. Didn't consider him that last year. I mean, look at the role he had in the playoffs, and rightfully so. But at this point, I would consider him that. But you look elsewhere, and on paper, this Yankee bullpen should be absolutely unstoppable. They really should be. Between how Cruz has done, and he's been hiccuping again lately, so I'm slightly nervous about that, but I still love his energy, and I know his potential, and his splitter is still one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. So I still trust in him. You have Weaver bafflingly just screwing up a lot of the time, and he'll have those couple of outings where he ropes you back in and gets you all nostalgic about 2024 Luke Weaver, but he'll just go out there and look like crap again eventually. Today he delivered big with the brief time that he pitched, but he'll rope you back in and really disappoint you again. So up and down since his injury. So just unsure there. Camilo Doval has just been a tragedy. We've well established that. Tim Hill you trust. I mean, he gives up his runs every now and again, but you still trust him, especially against lefties. Gets it done. Even occasionally against a righty, he gets it done. And Devin Williams, I mean, he's still got me on edge. And now, in fairness, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that he has been fantastic for a little while now. The last bunch of outings, he has looked so much better. He looked fantastic again today when he pitched. So he has been much better, but especially when it comes to high leverage moments. And I know his nickname these days is High Lev Dev, as cringe as that is, but anyway. I still, especially when it comes to the playoffs, I'm still going to be very nervous when he comes in. I'm sorry, we've just had a lot of emotional damage inflicted upon us this year at his hand. So I'm still nervous about him, even if he's doing what he's doing lately. And David Bednar, I mean, he'll give up his occasional run, but the guy's he's as close as you're going to get to a guarantee in this bullpen, by far. So you love him. But on paper, if you had like 2024 Luke Weaver, or even any semblance of him, if you had Bednar, and if Duvall was even half of what he was with San Francisco, you have Tim Hill the way he is, if you have a locked-in Fernando Cruz and he's just using and abusing that splitter and just baffling everybody, and Devin is Devin, the way he was for most of his time in Milwaukee, this bullpen should be murder. It really should be. I think that's part of the reason why it's so upsetting as to how much they have sucked for the vast majority of the year. And how it's by far the worst Yankee bullpen collectively that we have seen in many, many years. In my entire time watching the Yankees in the last 18 years, this is the worst of the bullpens I've seen. By far. Even in years when they had names that had less talent or you didn't expect nearly as much from, those bullpens still by far outperformed this one in the last 20 to 30 years. I mean, it's crazy how bad they've been. But they could be great. That's the thing. And that's what's so baffling about 2025. Yeah, the Yankees may have lost Soto, but they improved so many other things. And on paper, one could argue that many aspects of this team are better than 2024's was. Some could argue that, and they'd be correct in many regards. But the underperforming, the underwhelming gameplay, especially out of the bullpen that had so much higher expectations, it's been aggravating because of that. People expected more. And when you expect more, when it's looking all but guaranteed, especially on paper, and it doesn't happen, it's irritating. But if that bullpen shapes up, man, oh my God. Again, that's the thing about the 2025 team. They aggravate you. They play sloppy baseball. They just look plain stupid sometimes. But you see what they are when they're great and what they can be on paper. And you look at things and you evaluate things, and you see that even right now, even amidst all of their troubles and things you don't like, right now, with only 6 games to go, they are second only to the Blue Jays in the entire American League. And here down the stretch, they've had a lot of good looks against good teams. Look at that 2-week stretch right there, and they performed very well throughout most of it. It gets you thinking what this team could do. Operative word being could. Because we've seen it many times before when it comes down to actually doing what the 2025 team will do to us sometimes. So that depends. But the potential is certainly there, and the bullpen personifies that, in my opinion, what could be. And they go out there, and a lot of the time they either just age you while not giving up the game, but they give you diarrhea. Or they'll just completely screw the entire game over and just it results in a devastating loss. Much of the time that shouldn't have been. I hope that changes in the postseason, man. I really do. Because if they shape up, those kinds of names on paper, the potential's off the charts. So still keep my eye on them. As far as the bats go, well, lots of good feelings up and down, like we have well established throughout much of the season. He went 0 for 5 today, but Trent, I mean, what do you say about the guy? 3 more home runs since we last spoke last Sunday. He's at 33 home runs, 72 RBIs, OPS still in the 810s. The defense is still what it is, obviously. That's expected. What else are you going to say? It's just fantastic. We'll see how he does in his last week of the season here. Judgy, like we said before, hit his 49th home run, average still in the mid-320s, OPS at 1123 still. Just wild. 49 homers, 105 RBIs. He's getting more looks in the outfield once again. He's one away from 50, like I said before, is theoretically at 50, but got to hit one more to make it an official thing. And I gave all the accolades for what will happen with this 50th home run. One of the very few to do that, at least that in 3 of the last 4 years. So, I mean, it goes without saying, guys. And what I was mentioning before, obviously about the MVP race between he and Cal, again, if you want to go in on the stats and why Judge, even right now, still deserves it, then by all means, again, go back and listen to last week's episode. I really went in on the stats, and things have changed in the last week. That's fine. Cal's at 57 home runs going into his game tonight against the Astros, and Judge sits at 49, theoretically should be at 50. Right now, the overall opinion still has not changed, and the kinds of unbelievable differences in numbers in Judge's favor, significantly so, none of that's changed. It's still the same a week later, and I'm sure it still won't be that far off at all, as far as my opinion, next week. Now, a lot could change. He hits a home run tonight, he'll be at 58. And with 6 games to go, he'll just have to hit 5 home runs to even break Judge's record, which is crazy to even think about. That Judge just said only 3 years ago. And again, listen, no one is taking away how utterly remarkable a season Cal is having. No one's taking it away. No one at all. But again, the only arguments you continue to hear are that he's a catcher. And the physical taxation on the body, yeah, it may be true, but there are also people really just downplaying the outfield out there too. Now, I'm not saying the outfield's tougher than catcher or has nearly the physical taxation on the body and the legs particularly that catcher has. It's not what I'm saying. But people are saying, I literally had a guy the other day tell me that if you played baseball anywhere in your teens or around 16 or so, literally anybody can go in the outfield and catch fly balls. I can personally attest to the fact that I've seen many people in my own personal life try to do just that, and that is not true at all. You're just emotionally and irrationally downplaying what Aaron Judge is doing just for the sake of the player on your own team. It's only been Mariner fans that I've been seeing talking like this, so it is just pure and utter bias. There's no doubt about it. Just downplaying anything that's going on with Aaron Judge, saying that the outfield, just about anybody can go out there and catch fly balls and do what they do, and especially what Judge does, being the fielder that he is, the phenomenal fielder that he is, even with someone of his size. It's just not a rational line of thought. It's based on no fact whatsoever. It's just an opinion, and a dumb one at that, to be quite frank about it. You look at any discernible statistic that anybody could measure, anything. The home runs aren't even by that wide of a margin, especially if they're both in the 50s. If Judge hits at least 50 once again this year, and they both finish in the 50s, anybody who votes Cal Raleigh as MVP is delusional, particularly if he doesn't hit 60. I'll reiterate what I said last week. If Cal does hit 60, even then I would still vote Judge, especially if Judge is in the 50s. If he hits 60, that'll sway a little bit more people to his side, and understandably so, particularly for a catcher, but just in general, objectively too. 60 home runs in a year has rarely ever been done and is an absolutely remarkable and incomprehensible accomplishment. No doubt. The thing that will definitely cement him as MVP, similarly to how it cemented Judge in 2022 over Ohtani, is if he breaks Judge's record. That will definitively have Cal be the MVP. There will be no talking people out of it, and that'll be that, even if Judge is in the 50s. Which, again, I'm pretty confident Judge will be at least 50 by the time the last game of the season is done next week. But right now, I'm still voting Judge, guys. And it's not Yankee bias. I'm objective, guys. I'm truly objective. There's a quote, and I know a lot of people who claim to be objective. That's, Mariner fans will say, well, of course you'd say that about yourself, duh, but you just look at the statistics, guys. I mean, other than the home runs and RBIs, 105 versus, 118, 119 for Cal. Again, great, but not a massive discrepancy. Not massive at all. They're 7, 8 home runs apart. Not massive at all. Especially when you compare the other statistics. And speaking of that, there's a good quote that I saw on Twitter this week. I forget the Twitter handle, so I apologize. If you hear this podcast, the person who said this, and you're like, oh my God, he's stealing my stuff. I'm not stealing your stuff. I always give credit with all Twitter quotes or any social media quotes I see anywhere on all of my episodes. If you're a listener of mine, you know that. But I just happen to lose track of your handle. I apologize. I'm not taking credit for this quote. I just thought it was funny and wanted to mention it with this context. The quote was, if you dropped Cal Raleigh's OPS by 180 points, he'd be average. If you dropped Aaron Judge's OPS by 180 points, he'd be Cal Raleigh. It just goes to what I was talking about last week. When it comes to the gap in statistics, and again, there's not much of a difference with that come this week. Judge's OPS is still around 180 points higher. His batting average is almost 100 points higher. It's about 85 or so, something like that. Anywhere from 75 to 85 points higher. Every other statistic you want to call on, do it. You want to do stolen bases? Yeah, fine. Somehow Cal has 14 and Judge has 12. Oh, what a big decider. That'll be a difference maker in the MVP race. Any other statistic, I challenge you, other than home runs and RBIs. And again, I want to mention the hypocrisy. Everybody's always saying that, especially even if he just finishes in the 50s, oh, he should still win it just because he's a catcher. Really? Well, if home runs are the only thing that matters, catcher or not, again, I mentioned what I mentioned last week and what many others have rightfully mentioned too. Why didn't Judge win in 2017? And that's also the irritating part about it, because if you're a Yankee fan or just a baseball fan in general who's just interested in being objective, you would know that when it comes to Judge in particularly, especially if Cal finishes with under 60 home runs, this wouldn't be the first time that Judge is even robbed of the MVP. Just level-headedly so. I'm not even saying that as a Yankee fan. He was robbed in 2017. Compare his and Altuve's stats up and down the board. Judge was robbed. I am just simply not irritated in seeing that same thing repeat this year. Judge should be going for his 4th MVP right now. He should be, but he's not. And he should get it, especially if Cal Raleigh finishes with under 60 home runs. But especially, still, even if he finishes with less than Judge's record, let's say he finishes with 60 or 61, Judge should still win it because of how big of a gap there is in every other discernible statistic other than home runs and RBIs. Still saying that. And if you have a point to disprove that, if you're a Mariners fan or otherwise, go ahead and disprove it to me with any other answer other than he's a catcher. You have no argument. I have 20 arguments. I mean, I'm not even that big a fan of the WAR statistic, but Judge's WAR is even like 2 whole points higher. Do you know how big of a difference that is? Everyone wants to talk about individual impact on their teams and how the Mariners would be either like a third-place team or not even a playoff team if not for Raleigh. Well, look at how much Judge has meant to the Yankees. Without Judge, the Yankees probably aren't even a playoff team either, so what's your point? And the Yankees are definitely at least a third-place team for sure, because as close as they are to the Red Sox, I mean, the Red Sox own their ass this year, and it might be even worse without Judge in that regard. And there may have been a lot of other games, though there definitely would have been a lot of other games the Yankees would have lost where the Red Sox won, and the Yankees would have had a hell of a lot more opportunities to finish as a third-place team, and very well not even a playoff team. So again, the same thing applies. And if you want to go to worth as a team, wins above replacement, you go to the WAR stat, even though that has its flaws too, like any stat does, sort of, depending on the stat. And the WAR stat is still a huge discrepancy between the two of them. It's not close, guys. It's not close. If you're looking at this from a reasonable standpoint. Again, I don't know if Raleigh's going to hit 60 home runs. Let's say he homers tonight, he gets 58. Or if he homers twice. If he homers twice, then 60 is probably going to happen. He's probably going to hit one more in the last week of gameplay. I'd be shocked if he didn't. If he doesn't homer tonight, I'm going to say he is definitively not going to break Judge's record. So there's a slight chance it's 60, but he might not even do that. If he does homer tonight, there's a decent chance he hits 60. Still would not be completely convinced he would break Judge's record. Hits 2, gets to 59. I'd be shocked if he didn't hit 60, but would still be skeptical on breaking Judge's record. So, I mean, listen, we'll see what happens. Still 6 games left to go. The Mariners are facing the Rockies at one point this week, and they're about as out of it as any team has ever been, maybe other than last year's White Sox. So, I mean, the Rockies are going to be a team that loses probably over 115 games. So, they're just going to mail it in. Maybe they'll just throw a few down the middle so that Raleigh just does hit it. So, I don't know what's going to happen. I think the Mariners finish off against the Dodgers, which is a super interesting end to the season for them. But I don't know what's going to happen with Cal, guys. Again, I think if he ties or breaks Judge's record, I think they're going to give him the MVP by default. You're not going to be able to talk anybody out of it at that point. If he hits anything less than that, I'm still voting Judge, especially if it's less than 60. That's the way it's got to be. Because if you're responsible at all and you go by the numbers, Judge is the MVP. It's not even my opinion, guys. Compare all of their statistics up and down the board. I'm not kidding you. And even the plate appearances and at-bats discrepancy, that's because Judge missed about a week and a half with his injury. So even by that token, you want to give Judge those at-bats back? Especially when you consider how Judge slumped for a few weeks after his injury. And Cal's gone through plenty of long extended slumps in his second half too. But you want to make believe that never happened and give him the time he missed back? Oh my God, it'd be even a further discrepancy. It wouldn't even be a discussion. Give me a break. But we're talking about actuality here. So even the way it is, though, Judge is still the MVP, especially if he hits 50. I mean, come on, guys. Put your bias aside for just a second. Hits, average, on base, slugging, OPS, OPS plus, WRC plus, even fielding wise, Cal has not been nearly as good of a catcher as he has been, especially in the past when he won the Platinum Glove. So there's the defensive aspect of it too. And you got the WAR stat and all the other WAR stats that there are if you want to use those. Better. And by far. And even people calling Cal Raleigh this season being the best switch hitter season of all time. I mean, the season that everyone loves to bring up to compare to that is Mickey Mantle. No, Mickey Mantle's season is still better, guys. The only advantage that Cal has over him at this point is the home runs. Because with Mickey's best season, he had 54 home runs, and Cal has 57 right now. Every other statistic you could possibly measure between the two of them, Mickey Mantle was still better. So that's why I'm saying, the Mariners fans, I understand you crave for a lot of good to happen, especially because how long you guys went without making the playoffs and how long it's been since you guys had a player of this caliber, especially at the catching position. I get it. I understand the excitement. But that doesn't give you immunity to people ragging on you for just talking out of your ass. I don't know how to say it any more clear than that. You're talking out of your ass by saying these things. It's just not true. Home runs are not absolutely everything. And just because someone, regardless of position being played, maybe has, I don't know, a half a dozen or so more home runs than somebody else who's vastly better in every other human metric that could possibly be measured, that doesn't make it better. Just for having a few more home runs. Again, if that were the case, then Judge should have easily taken the MVP home for 2017, but he didn't. So why should Raleigh? Because he's a catcher? That's your only argument on the face of the earth? You don't have any other arguments for me? He's a catcher. That's really it. Yeah, it is true, the physical taxation on the body. It is true. Particularly for a switch hitting catcher. This hasn't been done before. But hasn't been done before doesn't make him immune to other statistics, vast amount of them too, being a lot better. Not even just a little better, a lot better. I don't know what's going to happen this next week, guys. I don't know what's going to happen tonight when the Mariners face the Astros in just a little bit. But right now, at this moment, Judge is still my vote. And if you disagree with me, I would like to see a reasonable argument presented other than he's a catcher. Because that's all I see pretty much. And then I even had some people mention the team worth. Well, I just disputed that before too. You could, in many regards, argue very similar things with Judge. So I'm sick of this debate. I'm curious to see how things end up with each of their numbers by the time the end of the season comes around. And I think that'll be a big decider on things. So I'll wait another week. And I want to remind people that despite what happens in the playoffs, these are regular season awards, people. Please stop forgetting about that and omitting that fact. So let's remember that too. But I'll wait another week and we'll see what happens. So that's Judge and another little diatribe on that whole MVP debate. Bellinger, what can I continue to say about him? I mean, in the last week or so, he's definitely slowed down. But, I mean, how friggin' great he's been for the vast majority of the year. You got to go through some peaks and valleys, right? It's only natural. 29 home runs right now, 97 RBIs. Again, mentioned last week, only one other season he hit at least 100 RBIs. He's probably going to do that in this last week here. Average still floating around 270, not bad at all. OPS in the 800s. No complaints about Bellinger here still. And his fielding speaks for itself. We know that. Benny Boy, Ben Rice, talked about him before. Still loving what I'm seeing from him for the most part. Jason got some more playing time today, mentioned him, and I really got to say I'm baffled by and need to stop seeing Austin Slater getting playing time over him. I don't get it, and it should just not happen. I don't care which arm that the opposing pitcher's throwing with. I just don't care. I just think it's the definition of malpractice to be using Austin Slater over the development of Jason Dominguez. It's just nonsensical. Really stupid. I get the fielding aspect of it, but dude, come on. So we have seen a little bit more of Jason lately. He got some big hits this past week, so it's nice to see. Jazz went on him before. Still loving what he's doing. Great numbers this year otherwise, other than the 30-30 we spoke about. He's 1 RBI short of 80 on the year. It's just terrific. OPS well into the 800s. Talk about second base production, man. Wonderful. Caballero, it's my shortstop right there. The aggressive gameplay, even the bunts he'll lay down, the bases he'll steal. He's nearing 50 stolen bases on the year. Just that pesky player, man, that I feel like the Yankees always have to face but seldom ever have on their own side. They finally have it on their side. They really do. And the fielding is still smooth with him, so there's that. Put him anywhere in the middle infield. Put him at third if you want. I'm just a big fan of his. I am. Doesn't do anything remarkable offensively, but does enough to annoy the hell out of the other team, make things happen. He's got a lot of passion there, makes things happen in games, and he'll give you great fielding. Speaking of shortstops, why don't we hit on Volpe? So, Volpe's been getting his days off. He's been getting his chances at short still. And lately, it's been a big topic of discussion. Last week, we spoke about, obviously, how he recently got a cortisone shot for that shoulder issue he was having and the remarkable malpractice of the Yankees once again in handling an injury. And it's not looking great for them because ever since that cortisone shot, not a good look for them. Great look for Volpe. He's been really good. He's been great since he got that cortisone shot, batting well over 300. No homers as of yet. He's still at one more until he hits 20 and joins the vast majority of the rest of the lineup in having 20 or more home runs. But he's putting bat to ball. Listen, I'm consistent in what I say. If Volpe's going to not hit any home runs, but he's going to be putting bat to ball and can come through and making things happen, I'll sacrifice the home runs for all that, and I'm staying true to that. If he's going to keep getting the hits he's getting occasionally, and he's just not going to get any home runs as a result, if he's coming through in the clutch and he's putting bat to ball, putting the ball in play and making things happen, I'll make that trade every time. Especially if it means I'll get some good fielding back too. So I'll give up the home runs for all that, man. No doubt about it. But it is worth mentioning that Volpe, in the chances he's gotten since that cortisone shot in his shoulder, he has looked better. Something to keep an eye on. He's 6 for his last 19, so keep an eye on Volpe there. Very interesting development since that cortisone shot. And I know that at times, I've gone over this many times, that every once in a blue moon, Volpe will go on these very brief stretches and then proceed to go 5 for his next 70. But right now, there's not enough time for that kind of an extended slump to happen again in the first place. But also, you just hope that it continues to stay this way anyway, because October's right around the corner, and having him finally figure this out, possibly this close to that, is just that much better for the Yankees. So, I mean, I don't doubt that if a lot of the season were still left, that it would just result in another extended slump once again. That's just been the cycle for Volpe forever. But with the season coming to a close, we could just hope that this could be a newer version of him for the rest of the way out, especially with October right around the corner. But it's something to keep an eye on right now. So right now, I guess he and Caballero will continue to swap in playing time. I'd still rather see Caballero there more often than not, but if Volpe's going to find himself a little bit, then I am not going to complain about that. You won't hear any complaints out of me. Speaking of left side of the infield, McMahon, exactly what I said before. Same thing to expect. Little to no offense at all, but great glove. What else are you going to say? Goldschmidt, still getting his chances to platoon, occasionally getting a start when it comes to facing a lefty, but otherwise, just still going out there and playing a good first base, and occasionally coming through on offense, just getting through, you know? He's 38 years old now, another year older. Still making it through his year that he's had with the Yankees, and it hasn't been bad. He's doing his thing, you know? Especially if he at least continues to be really good defensively at first. That's a huge priority of mine. If your bat's going to go a little bit more quiet, you're going to get less looks because of that down the line. Just stay sharp defensively at the very least, man. And Stanton's been much more down to earth these last couple of weeks. Definitely came back down from the high he was on for a while. But still hitting home runs every now and again. Still getting hits in big moments. I mean, that's the name of the game for him, right? Probably going to start to feel that October hotness start to take him over since it's so close. He's the king of October after all, just about. So, interested to see what he does in the next week or two as the playoffs get closer and closer. But he's still out there doing his thing whenever he gets looks. OPS still over 900. Average around 270, 21 home runs, and 228 at-bats. Taking that every day of the week, man. Just south of 60 RBIs already. I mean, just hit his 450th of his career. Go Stanton, man. Screw it. It's awesome. And like I said about Rosario before, too, man, on the topic of him, just briefly hit on, and I'll repeat it here just once more before we head off here. I know his main thing is to get looks against left-handed pitchers, but I genuinely enjoy watching Rosario play. I hope he gets a bit more reps, especially in this last week here. See what he can do. Highly valuable option off the bench there. Love it. And as we round off the team, guys, I just want to reiterate one more thing, too. Just another reminder that this Yankee team, they really can accomplish anything so long as they don't go out there and just play like boneheads like they have for such a chunk of the season. But you see how they are when they're even near their best, not even quite at their best, but near their best, and they're playing at least a somewhat clean brand of baseball. All those names you see on paper, if they're performing, I mean, even half decently, what they are capable of, this team is capable of anything they want. They really are. Whether or not you really believe in them to accomplish said goals when it comes down to it, that's another story. But what they are potentially capable of, that's indisputable. You have a solid 3-4 guys in the rotation. Fried and Rodon, they're as reliable as any duo just about has been in baseball. You have Schlittler, who's just shown so much promise, can at least be out of the bullpen in the playoffs, or maybe just open up the game for a couple innings, a few innings, depending on how he looks. You have Heel, especially against the Red Sox, like I said before, based off his history against them. And as he continues to find himself more and more outings he gets. And Will Warren, you're a bit uncomfortable with. I definitely wouldn't throw him in the rotation at all in the playoffs. He might not even make the playoff roster. I mean, we'll have to see how things shake out. But you got a solid 3-4 guys in the rotation there to really baffle the hell out of some lineups in the coming weeks. And you got an offense that's been amongst the best in baseball. There's no ceiling for them as far as what they could do. Especially the first few guys. With how Trent has done in his career year. Judge, Bellinger, Rice, Stanton, Jazz. I mean, all these guys, like 5-6 guys up and down the lineup, they can really do some damage if you let them. They could. And even the guys you could take off the bench for solid platooning options. You got Rosario, you got Goldschmidt. Guys who kill lefties. Got a good bench. You got good depth for these sorts of things. And in the bullpen, like I said, it's just a matter of these big names on paper living up to their names. Duvall being half of what he was with San Francisco. Devin being what he was for the vast majority of his time in Milwaukee, basically just except for against Pete Alonso last wildcard series in 2024. Bednar continuing to kick ass. Weaver reminding us of any semblance of his 2024 self. Tim Hill going out and doing what he does. Even though I definitely consider him lower bullpen guy now, and I wouldn't even be bothered if he missed the playoff roster. If Mark Leiter Jr. could somehow even unlock even a semblance of his 2024 self, especially his postseason self, potentially killer bullpen. That's what I'm saying. The potential is there, and that's what drives you so nuts about this 2025 team sometimes. It's there, though. They can do it. It's not impossible. We just have to see how things shake out when it actually comes down to it. Will they be their sloppy-ass selves like we've seen plenty this year, or will they actually live up to their potential? And they could really make a run at things if they do. They really could. It's up to them on how they do it ultimately. But what they got to focus on right now, one thing at a time, finish strong in this last week, man. You got to continue to beat the bad teams. You went 5-2 this past week. Good job. Took both series. You did your job. Do it again this week. You got the White Sox, who are definitely losing 100+ yet again this year. Kick their ass at Yankee Stadium. You got the Orioles, who you mostly looked very good against in Baltimore. You got them for 3 at the stadium to finish off the year. Kick their ass. Do your job, do your job, do your job. Get it done. Finish strong. Lock in that first wild card. And if by some miracle the Blue Jays have a really rough last week and you have a really good week as the Yankees and you could somehow miraculously take the division back, even better, because then you'll probably be the best team in the American League at that point, taking the Blue Jays' place. And you'll earn yourself a bye from the wild card series. Even better, as unlikely as that is, because again, 2 games back, but technically 3 because the Jays have the tiebreaker. Finish strong. That's the point. Don't let the Red Sox get closer. Same thing with the teams behind them, even though it's less likely with them, obviously, naturally. And don't give up on the Blue Jays until it's mathematically over. I mean, it's not likely to happen at all, absolutely. Virtually 3 games back with 6 to go. It's probably not going to happen. But don't give up on it until it's definitively over. And you were gifted these cakewalk games, or at least they're supposed to be, to finish off the schedule here. Finish strong. The last lap, get it done. Don't fizzle out at the end. Run straight through that finish line, and convincingly so. That's my parting message as we head into the last week of the regular season, guys. And with that being said, that is the second to last regular season episode of Yapping Yankees for 2025. Episode 264 to be specific, my friends. Last usual reminders, as always, follow me on all social medias if you do not already, guys. My Facebook fan page, Mike Scudero NY. My Twitter or X is at Mike Scudero, and my Instagram is Mike Scuds97. Subscribe to Yapping Yankees on all 4 of the platforms it is available on. That is YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Like, subscribe, comment, show your love for the show, and spread the word like you always do such a great job at doing, my friends. And if you've missed any past Yapping Yankees episodes 1 up to 264 today, all of those are available on Apple, Spotify, and SoundCloud, and episodes 34 up to 264 today are available on YouTube if you prefer that. But once again, I thank you 3,000 for listening to me yap today. As always, my good people, I have been your host, Mike Scudero, and we shall yap again next Sunday, September the 28th, when I come at you with episode 265 and the final regular season wrap-up of Yapping Yankees. But until then, more usual reminders for you. Hang in there. Be patient. Please stay safe. Look out for your loved ones. Go ahead and kick life's ass this week, like I always tell you to do. And I'm going to extend that message to the Yankees again. Kick ass in the last week. Finish strong. Anything can happen as far as final placings come next Sunday. That's all I got to say about that. Until then, my friends, take care, and let's go Yanks.